Welcome to InTouch, dedicated to real estate professionals worldwide. We're here to educate you, entertain you, and empower you in all facets of real estate. Are you ready for the latest news, trends, and market updates? Then it's time to get in touch. Welcome to the show. Today we have a special guest with us, and that is Angelique Pereira. We're going to be talking about generosity at large. So Angelique, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Happy to be here, and just hope we can bless anyone that's listening today.
Well, I'm so excited to share your story because it's a compelling story. It's certainly motivational and inspirational within our organization. To begin with, why don't we give the listeners just a little bit of background about your experience in the real estate industry?
Absolutely. I got my license in 2004, and I was drawn to the real estate industry because I was just hungry, had entrepreneur tendencies, and it drew me to the real estate industry. My first transaction was my first purchase of my townhome. And with that, I was just, 25 and eager. So I ended up leaving my job I was working at Washington Mutual at the time in their training and development department. And so I ended up leaving my job and just going full on into the real estate industry, and was happy to be there and excited. And my first broker was actually in the same neighborhood that we're about to talk about. The property that I just closed is my first generous giving transaction. So it was kind of came around full circle.
Full circle indeed. And you took the leap of faith. A lot of people are in your position with, say, a corporate job and a desire to break into the real estate industry. But it takes faith because all of a sudden you switch from a salaried position to commission only. And you made it. That's the conclusion of the matter. And we've had the privilege to watch you grow and to help with the training and kind of discipling along the journey. And what I'm so pleased with is not only have you made it as far as from a sales standpoint, income standpoint, but you made a decision earlier on in your career to become a generous agent. And we have developed a program inside our organization called the Generous Giving Program. And that assists agents in becoming more generous by giving a portion of their commission away. Why don't you share with the listeners a little bit about how that works and what compelled you towards the Generous Giving Program?
Absolutely. I'd love to share. I think the Lord has been leading me throughout, led me to ARE. I typically did not take recruiting calls while I was at my oil and gas job. However, I took the call from Rochelle. And when I got to ARE, I answered the call again to start looking into really understanding the Generous Giving Program and start prospecting. And so my prospecting efforts started exactly where I was most comfortable, and that is with the organizations with whom I was already volunteering. That just seemed like a natural fit for me. And so I approached the organization. It was unfortunately a long road. I got the help of David Malmy. We had several phone calls. We presented the program, the agreement, answered all the questions, and then we kind of just waited. And about almost a year later, it finally got into the right hands, and it moved really quickly from there. We had the agreement signed in about 30 days.
And for those who are listening that are unfamiliar with the program, the way that it works is essentially a business and a charity make an arrangement in which the business commits a certain percentage of their profits, or in this case, a percentage of a transaction that they want to donate to the charity. And we give anywhere between 10% all the way up to 40% of our commission to specific charities that clients designate, that agents are also passionate about. So why don't you share about the few charities that you've already signed up that you're supporting now?
Absolutely. So the first charity that I signed up was an organization that I started volunteering with since high school. It was inspired by my dad. My dad is still Vincentians. It's the Society of St. Vincent de Paul. And they started in Paris to help the poor keep the poor from really falling into a state of homelessness. So it's really near and dear to my heart. And that's where I went first. The second organization was Catholic Charities. I've been partnering with Catholic Charities to adopt families, underprivileged families, during the Christmas time, uh, fulfilling their wish lists. And so I approached them second. And then the third charity happened to be a 501c3 that I formed, Andrew, through your guidance and inspiration and recommendation. I finally converted a initiative that I started the year that I started in real estate. When I purchased my first property, I was inspired by the Lord to give back. And so I started adopting families for Christmas. And then that initiative is now Christmas Angels Inc. And that was the third organization that I signed up through Generous Giving Program. And the idea is my family members would like to support that charity because they have been part of it for the last 20 years and would like to see us do even more. This year, we have adopted 53 families for Christmas.
That's incredible. This brings up the biblical scripture that comes out of 2 Corinthians 9:6. And I'll just read a few verses here. It says, "Remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work. As it is written, they have freely scattered their gifts to the poor, their righteousness endures forever." What an encouraging verse. And you're living out that verse. So congratulations for the great work that you're doing. We're also joined in the studio by Gary Giffen. Gary, welcome to the show.
Good morning, and thank you for having me again.
Well, Gary, why don't you share your testimony as well? You were an early adopter of this generous giving program many years ago when I believe it was given to the company as somewhat of a revelation, a way in which we can continue to support the charities that we all love and care for. But in so many ways, we can give much, much bigger checks. We've seen agents be able to give checks in the amount of 10,000, 20,000 just in one transaction. So why don't you share your story and how you got started with the generous giving program?
Yeah, I believe I was probably one of the first checks before this really caught on, and like Angelique said, sometimes people really don't get it. They don't understand that you're going to be giving them money, so they are reluctant to sign. But as long as you're a 501c, you it's really easy. You just sign up, and we sell property or land or any type of real estate, and we give you a check, usually a very big check back to your organization. And I think the first one, Andrew, was a local, well, it's not local, but it was, I think, born here as FCA. And that was the first check that we I had sold a property in Encinitas. It was a luxury real estate property, and we presented them with a check. And you can probably find that video either on YouTube or on our AARE website. And then I signed up another local company in San Diego called Uplift, and they're downtown San Diego. And Monica Ball was instrumental in getting us connected there. And now she loved our company so much that she came from another real estate agency. She's a broker, doesn't sell real estate, but wanted to be a part of our company, and just joined us recently. So it's pretty exciting when people figure out, what this is all about.
Yeah, and the encouragement is simply to give more. We all are doing our very best with what income we're provided in order to give generously. But this presents an opportunity in which, through the commission that the agent and the company receives, making a declaration on the front end that we're going to be giving a significant portion to the charity. And some interesting things happen when you become generous. It's like a ripple effect. Others are inspired by your generosity. And Angelique, I'd like for you to share a story about a property that you recently sold that resulted in a very large gift to the charity, but also it resulted in others being inspired to be generous as well. So please give the listeners the details.
I would love to, Andrew. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this transaction, because I feel it was really God working through me to just, he showed up and showed off. So I love telling the story. The referral for this particular listing came through a friend of mine, who's now a friend of mine, after volunteering alongside me for 9 years at Holy Rosary Church in Midtown Houston. And I presented at a conference meeting, the Generous Giving Program, and David Malmy attended, and we shared the program with all of the conference members. And then the seed was sown. And a year later, once we finally got the agreement signed, the fellow Vincentian approached me and asked if I would list his property for sale. This particular property was a stretch. It was a development opportunity for me because it was in a luxury category. And so, but I kept praying all throughout. I listed the property, and then it sat on the market for longer than I'd liked. I believe I did 9 open houses in a row. And finally, I was sitting at an open house one day, and I just decided to put my head down and say a prayer and offer it to the Lord. And then everything just moved so quickly. We had a cash buyer come in and offer to close in 2 weeks. And then fast forward to the inspection, I was just there because all of the appointments are accompanied, and I happened to be there. And the buyer approached me and said that she was looking for a sign from God that every property she'd ever bought throughout her lifetime, she received a sign from God. And so I shared with her that this property would result in a generous giving donation. I explained the program, and she was so inspired. She immediately was brought to tears, gave me the biggest hug. And then about 10 minutes later, she came up to me and said, I would like to make a donation in addition to the generous giving donation to the same organization. And I'd like to give it in your honor because of the kindness that you've shown us throughout this process. And my heart was so warm because I knew that was the Lord just working through all of us. And then one thing I hadn't shared before is I also, out of my own proceeds, made a donation. So really, this organization received 3 donations from this one transaction. So it was absolutely the Lord. And then the Lord used this experience to just sow a seed in others. And like Gary mentioned earlier, even if the initial seed being sown was not comfortable for some that were witnessing this type of beautiful, generous giving, it was still a seed that was sown that later bore some fruit and inspired others to give that really didn't look at generosity the same after hearing about this story of how just several individuals chose to be generous and give from the heart and give freely and give generously.
It's amazing. A triple gift. And I'll continue reading from 2 Corinthians. I'm now at verse 10. This is 9, verse 10. Now he who supplies seed to the sower and bread for food will also supply and increase your store of seed and will enlarge the harvest of your righteousness. You will be enriched in every way so that you can be generous on every occasion. And through us, your generosity will result in thanksgiving to God. This service that you perform is not only supplying the needs of the Lord's people, but is also overflowing in many expressions of thanks to God. Because of the service by which you have proved yourselves, others will praise God for the obedience that accompanies your confession of the gospel of Christ, and for your generosity in sharing with them and with everyone else. And in their prayers for you, their hearts will go out to you because of the surpassing grace God has given to you. Thanks be to God for his indescribable gift. So that's amazing. Just by your act of generosity, you inspired another party in the transaction to become generous as well. So very well done. Good seeds that have been sown. Gary, would you like to share anything else about your experience? Again, you mentioned the Fellowship of Christian Athletes earlier. I remember that was a huge check when we presented that. They were wowed, literally. I think it was over $10,000. That was the first check that you were able to give. And for many that participate in this program, I know we had an agent that gave away collectively $50,000 over a series of transactions to his church. And those are the largest gifts many times anyone's ever given to a charity. And so the blessing is received by the person that's giving and also the charity that's receiving. But any other words of encouragement for people that are considering starting the journey of generosity?
I'm just motivated by um, listening to Angelique. I mean, basically, I took the ball, got a couple nice checks, and she's like dedicated almost her career now to the generous giving program. So we know it works. It's just a matter of um, showing people how it works and how easy it is to give big checks, not just little small checks, but big checks back to their organization or their church or whatever it may be. So I do encourage everybody to check it out. It's easy, to go to our website, and we do have a generosity tab that you can click on, take a look at it, watch the videos, and then if you have any questions, feel free to give any one of our agents a call. There's some of us that have adopted the program, and some haven't yet, but it is a fantastic program, and we're excited to see where it's going to go.
Indeed. And just for clarity, so people understand, this is not a referral. So you have to be very careful because licensing laws dictate that you can't just pay out referral fees to people that are unlicensed. Ultimately, this is a choice of an agent choosing to be generous with their own commission. So we can do what we desire to do with our own commissions. We can be generous or we can be selfish. We can keep it all to ourselves. So the commission is earned just like any other commission, but on the front end, we are dedicating that we are going to give a certain percentage of our commission to a charity that we have selected. And typically the client is involved in that selection because they have a passion towards that charity. So it doesn't cost the buyer or the seller any money. It's ultimately just coming from the brokerage and the agent and us choosing to be generous with the portion of our commission that we've determined based on the price of the transaction. Now, there is another program I did want to mention that's also called Generous Giving. It's from an organization that was started many years ago, the McClellan Foundation, and they basically put together a training program called Generous Giving, and it inspired me. And they put together what's called Journeys of Generosity, and they call them a JOG for short. And these are typically like a 2-day event that people can attend. They now do them online, but if you have the opportunity to do it, there's no cost to do this. You could type in Generous Giving or McClellan Foundation, the Journey of Generosity, and you will find that online. But I would highly encourage that you attend this. And if you can do it in a small group live setting, there are facilitators nationwide that do this. And it typically looks something like this. On a Friday evening, you and your spouse will attend a small group with others that are just starting their journey of generosity, a very small group. And there'll be a facilitator that's a little further down the road of that journey of generosity. And they'll open up the conversation with the small group that Friday evening, and then watch some videos and really hear from people who have dedicated their life to living a journey of generosity on a daily basis. And then you'll come back on Saturday, do a full day with that small group, and many times early Sunday morning as well. And then you will have the same transformation that I had if you stick with it through that weekend. You can do it online. You'll have a similar transformational experience. But they really probe and start asking some hardball questions about, who has a hold of your pocketbook? Is it you? And are you putting your faith and your trust in physical assets and means? Or are you freely giving and blessing others and thinking eternally with your investments and your generous gifts? So I would highly recommend, if you have not done that, to go on a journey of generosity. Angelique, I know you recently went on one, and I believe now you'll be facilitating those. If you could share with the listeners just a little bit about what that experience was like.
Absolutely. It was, I attended an online version on the 10th of September. And interestingly enough, it was right after I closed my first generous giving transaction. I closed the transaction on August the 16th and then attended a jog, a journey of generosity, on the 10th. And I feel like that was by design. It was divinely orchestrated. And soon after, I was so inspired that the exact same week, I attended the facilitator training. And that's another way that I would like to give back, is facilitate these a jog in my home. And so I'm really looking forward to it, because it was very moving, very inspiring, and it opened my mind up to generosities beyond just monetary donations. Just Andrew, you talked about this at the Christmas party, that there's many ways to give. And so just wanting to be, again, help sow seeds of generosity and show others how there's many opportunities to be generous, and then also to be blessed in turn for that generosity.
Indeed, as they say, there is 7 ways to be generous, and we credit our good friend and fellow author Brad Formsma with the great book that he wrote called I Like Giving. And you can be generous with your thoughts, your words, your time, your attention, your influence, your money, and your belongings. So it's not just writing checks, but really, when you think about that, being generous with your thoughts towards others, or your words of encouragement, spending time volunteering, giving people your full undivided attention, and with your influence, introducing people or giving them an open door that could be a breakthrough in their life. And of course, with your pocketbook, and also with the stuff that you already own, your belongings, whether it's by loaning or giving those to others. There's so many ways to be generous. Well, as we wrap up, Gary, I wanted to get any closing thoughts on generosity at large and your own personal journey, and any other tips or wisdom you'd like to share with the audience members that may be a little bit earlier on their journey.
Well, Andrea, I think over the years since I've been with this company, I've kind of followed your suit. You've constantly given uh, back from proceeds and profits, um, and not only just 5-10%, double that. So I've tried to follow your lead, and branched out to many different nonprofits, and I like to give through service. A lot of times people are like, well, I don't have that kind of money right now. Money's kind of tight. Well, that's okay. There's a lot of different things that you can do, where you can volunteer time at a local church or a homeless community, whatever it is. You probably have something you like to do, whether it's golf, surfing, whatever it is that you do in your area. There's probably a lot of different things that you can volunteer your time. So it doesn't always have to be money. But if you have any questions, or you want to know how I give, not only by money but through time, feel free to give me a call or send me an email.
And there's always an opportunity when there is an intention within the heart. And I'll give you a recent example. We had someone speak at our Christmas party that helps families every single Christmas. And there was a family that recently lost their home to a fire. And I reached out after the Christmas party because I realized we have furnishings in storage and we don't need those furnishings in this season of our life. And we plan to donate them in some capacity. But now there's a specific family that had a specific incident, and I was made aware of it and immediately reached out, and they said, yes, in a few weeks, we're going to find a new place. And of course, we need furnishings. So when you put your heart out there and say, I want to be generous, you'll be amazed by all the opportunities that are presented your way. Well, I want to thank you all for listening. Hopefully the message has blessed you. I want to encourage you to get into 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and go through some of those verses, and you will be inspired just like we are to be more and more generous. And Angelique, thank you for sharing your story, your testimony. We hope the message has blessed the listeners, and we will catch you on the next round.